It was a quiet morning in Providence, the kind of morning when the city still seemed half asleep, coffee cups steaming in tired hands, and streetlights flickering their last glimmers before fading to daylight. Inside the small, familiar courtroom of Judge Frank Caprio, the air carried its usual calm dignity. Wooden benches gleamed softly, and the flag behind the bench stood tall and still. Judge Caprio adjusted his glasses, glancing down at the docket. The next case was a minor one, truancy. A child had been missing school too often. Normally, such cases were simple, resolved in minutes. But that morning, nothing would be ordinary. The bailiff called. Case of young Daniel Miller. The doors creaked open. A woman stepped in, early 30s, face tired but gentle. Her uniform still smelled faintly of dish soap and the morning's restaurant rush. Holding her hand was a boy, about 11. His clothes were clean but faded, his shoes slightly too big. He walked quietly, eyes down, clutching something in his pocket. Judge Caprio looked up with his warm, steady eyes. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller, and you must be Daniel," he said softly. The boy nodded but didn't speak. The charges. The clerk read the brief summary. Daniel Miller, age 11, had been absent from school 7 times in a month. No notes, no explanations. Judge Caprio leaned back. "Well, that's not good, is it?" he said gently. 7 days of school missed. "Daniel, that's a lot of lessons." The boy's shoulders tightened. He still didn't answer. His mother, nervous, began speaking. "Your Honor, I've been trying my best. It's just, we've had some hard weeks. His father passed away last year, and—" She paused, swallowing hard. "Sometimes it's been hard to keep things steady." Judge Caprio nodded with understanding. "I'm very sorry for your loss." Then he turned to Daniel again. "Son, can you tell me why you weren't in school? You know education is important, right?" The boy hesitated. His eyes filled with a mixture of fear and pride. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His mother touched his arm, whispering, "Tell him the truth, honey." And then, the truth came out, small, trembling, and heavier than any fine. The truth. Daniel took a breath. I wasn't skipping, sir. I was working." The courtroom went still. Even the clerk stopped moving. Judge Caprio tilted his head slightly. "Working?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir. After my dad died, Mom works a lot. Sometimes she forgets to eat, and my sister, she's 6, she says she's not hungry, but I know she is. So, I go out before school. I clean cars, or help carry groceries at the market. They give me a few dollars, and I buy her lunch before I go to class." He looked down again, voice trembling. "But sometimes I get late, and then they mark me absent." Judge Caprio's gavel hand froze. For a long moment, he didn't move at all. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that makes your chest hurt. Even the bailiff, a man who'd seen hundreds of cases, blinked hard and looked away. A promise and a pain. Judge Caprio leaned forward, his voice softer now, like a grandfather's. "Daniel, you're telling me that you skipped school to earn money for your sister's lunch?" The boy nodded again. "Yes, sir. I promised my dad I'd take care of her." Something deep inside the judge stirred, a mix of pride and heartbreak. He had heard many excuses in his long career, but never one spoken with such pure innocence. He looked at the mother. Tears streamed down her face. "Your Honor, I didn't know. I work 2 jobs, I leave before sunrise. I thought he was just sleeping in." Judge Caprio removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes gently. "You've raised a good boy," he said quietly. "A very good boy." The verdict of kindness. Then he spoke to Daniel again. "You know, Daniel, when I was your age, my father used to tell me something I'll never forget. He said, justice is not only about laws, it's about heart." He paused. "And today, I think you've taught me that again." The judge leaned over to his clerk. "How much is the fine for truancy these days?" $50, Your Honor," she replied softly. Judge Caprio nodded. Then he opened his wallet and took out a crisp $50 bill. He placed it on the bench. "Fine paid," he said simply. The courtroom gasped. But Judge Caprio wasn't done. He motioned for Daniel to come closer. When the boy stood before him, small and trembling, the judge reached into his drawer and pulled out a white envelope. "I have something for you," he said. He wrote on it, "Lunch money, for a promise kept." Then he handed it to Daniel. "There's a little more than 50 in there. Use it for your sister's lunches. And one more thing." He leaned closer. "Promise me you'll go to school every single day. No more skipping. Because the world needs boys like you to grow up and make it better." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He nodded. "I promise, sir." The judge smiled, and for a second, he wasn't just a man behind a bench, he was every good father the world could wish for. After the gavel. When they left the courtroom, the boy turned once more at the door and waved. Judge Caprio waved back, smiling. The little sister, waiting outside with a small backpack, ran to Daniel and hugged him tightly. The judge watched from his bench, his eyes glistening. He turned to his clerk quietly. "Sometimes the smallest cases carry the biggest lessons." And the clerk, still touched, nodded. "You just changed that kid's life, Judge." Caprio looked at the door again. "Maybe," he whispered. "But I think he just changed mine." Weeks later. A few weeks passed. The courtroom went on, as it always did, traffic tickets, parking violations, small-town disputes. But one morning, a letter arrived. It was addressed in a child's handwriting. The clerk handed it to the judge. He opened it, and as he read, his eyes softened. "Dear Judge Caprio, I've been in school every day since that morning. My sister says thank you for the lunches. Mom cried when I showed her the envelope. I still work a little after school, but I study first, like you said. I want to be a judge too, one who listens to people's hearts. Thank you for believing in me. Daniel Miller." Judge Caprio folded the letter carefully and placed it in his drawer, right next to a small brass plaque that read, "Kindness is stronger than law." He smiled, whispering, "Lunch money well spent." Years later. 10 years passed. The courtroom looked older, quieter. Judge Caprio, now nearing the twilight of his career, still came every morning, greeting people with the same warmth, the same patience. One afternoon, his clerk came in, smiling. "Judge, there's someone here to see you. Says he owes you lunch." The judge chuckled. "Owes me lunch? That's a new one." The door opened, and a young man in a clean shirt and tie walked in, holding a lunch bag. His eyes were familiar, calm, kind, full of the same quiet strength the judge remembered. "Daniel?" the judge whispered. "Yes, sir," the young man said, smiling. "You said I owed you lunch? So, here it is." They sat together at the bench, no robes, no titles, just two souls connected by kindness. Daniel handed him a sandwich and laughed. "I'm studying law now. Got a scholarship." The judge smiled proudly. "That's wonderful. You've kept your promise." Daniel nodded. "Because you kept yours first." And for the first time in a long while, Judge Frank Caprio's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of the quiet joy that comes from knowing you've made the world a little softer. In a world where justice often speaks in cold words and numbers, there are still judges who listen to the language of the heart. One boy's promise, to feed his sister, became a man's reminder that compassion is the highest form of law. And long after the gavel falls, it's kindness that echoes the loudest.